Michigan State University has on their website there has a list of
Good
mycotoxin
afternoon.
labs in the
I'm
country.
Ashley Goodman with the
wanted to
Kansas Department of
look for
Agriculture, and we would like to welcome you to today's virtual farm tour. Kansas dairy is ranked 16th in the country as far as production, and we are growing
Everybody, thank you,
exponentially
Dr. Whitlow.
with
That was
addition of farms
really
every
a
year, increasing
good
cow
topic
numbers
for us
across
this
the
year.
state, the addition of the DFA powder plant in Garden City,
So once
Kansas,
again, the folks at the
heifer
Dairy
grower
Expo would really
opportunities
appreciate it
as we
if
rank
you would
first
hand in your
as far
surveys
as
you
ratio
leave,
from heifers to cows,
right at the back door.
and the
They're
opportunity
eagerly
for
awaiting them.
producers to soar into
And,
the
on
21st
behalf of
century
feed
with automatic
supervisors, we
milking
really appreciate
installations.
the opportunity
The latter
to
is what you will
be
learn
part of
about
this
today.
presentation, and thank you all
With
again
that,
for
I will
coming.
turn it over
Enjoy
to
the rest
Dwayne
of
and
the day
Rhonda
at Expo.
Meier. We do ask that you silence your devices and please hold all questions till the end, and I will come around with a microphone.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, especially with.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are humbled and grateful that we've had an opportunity to come and share our farm with you. It is quite an honor to us, so I guess with that, do you have something to add?
We'd like to really thank the Kansas Department of Ag for sponsoring this and World Dairy Expo for accepting our nomination today. And we hope that you enjoy your virtual tour of our farm.
Okay. Click first. I got to learn how to run this.
We're not public speakers, as you'll soon find out.
Okay.
I guess I'm going to introduce our family. Closest to me is our youngest daughter, Samantha. She's at K-State this year. She's a senior, and she's going to graduate with a degree in microbiology. Then next to her, well, closest here is her boyfriend, and then the next one is our youngest son, Micah. Micah's job at the dairy is to, he does a lot of the feeding, he does a lot of the maintenance work. He's just kind of our jack of all trades guy. He helps in the barns, he just kind of does whatever anybody needs. Our oldest daughter is next to me in the picture. She's a herdsman. She runs our north barn by herself. She runs 6 robots and about 300 cows.
Yeah.
She does our mature pens, is what she calls them, and she says I'm the maturest on the farm, so I get the old cows. Then myself, I always tease everybody and say I get the jobs that nobody else wants to do. I'm the calf raiser, I do the book work, and I'm also kind of the mediator between my husband and his sons.
I don't understand the laughter here. Come on now.
And then Dwayne, he does all of the feeding. He's the manager, and he tries to be the mentor of the farm, which doesn't always work out the best. Then our middle son, Tony. Tony has 65 jerseys in the herd. We're quite proud of him and his jerseys. He's really done very well, and it's exciting. When he first started, we just were like, why do you want to do jerseys? And Dwayne's going to talk about that a little bit later. Then our oldest son is Dusty, and Dusty he's trying to become kind of the leader of the bunch, and being the oldest boy, sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. He does herd health. He does, help me out, Dwayne, what all does
Computer work.
Computer work. We have,
Sampling.
Yeah, we have the shuttles for the robots, and he does all of that. He takes care of all of that. I should mention that Tony does do herd health, and he also does the hoof trimming for the dairy. So that's a little bit about the family. We have 6 grandchildren. The little girl in the middle is one of Tony's, and I think she's going to be our next cow person. She loves the cows. So.
Anything else we wanted? Okay.
Oops, went the wrong way.
Wrong way. Okay, mission statement. You can read this. I guess I put it in a nutshell. Take care of the cows, and they're going to take care of you. And I mean, we try to do this on a daily basis. One thing I take a lot of pride in is not only the accomplishments of our children, but I want to produce a quality product day in and day out. And if I don't, I feel that I've failed. I'm very, I'm not sure how to, my big thing is taking care of cows and making sure they're healthy. Because then that's what I really look at. Whether it's feed-wise, medication, whatever, I want to take care of them as the best way I can. And the calf situation is the same way. So what?
I guess with this slide, we decided we would talk a little bit about how we try to give back to the community as well. With the addition of the robots, we've had so many opportunities to give tours and to have people come onto the dairy that probably wouldn't have normally stopped. We've just had a group of food bloggers a few weeks ago, which was just quite an experience for me because I'm usually, when I give tours, I usually do the little kids and Dwayne handles the adults. A few years back, I didn't think I'd ever probably get to do another tour again because I had a group of school kids and we were still milking in the parlor and I had lined them up against the wall of the bulk tank and one of them climbed up on the bulk tank for whatever reason. And when the teacher went to get him back down, he knocked the pipe off and we were milking. I think we lost 500 gallons of milk that morning. And there were kids screaming and the milk was just flying. And it was just, it was...
And Dad wasn't very happy
And
either.
no, he wasn't. I lost all sense of what to do and I couldn't get the tank shut off. And it was just, yeah, it was a disaster. But as we got the robots, we decided, well, maybe we can go ahead and start tours again. But I learned a lot from little kids because they ask some of the coolest questions and they want to know and they want to learn. And I figure if I get to the kids, they're going to get to the parents. So, but anyway, back to the food bloggers, they had never been on a farm. They were all from the city. And I figured the first thing they were going to tell me was it stinks because that's usually what I hear. But they were very receptive and they wanted to know and they wanted to learn and they asked some awesome questions as well. And so I feel like any opportunity we have now as dairy farmers, we have to educate. And if we do not educate, we're just going to lose it. And so that's my goal right now is to educate, educate, educate. So.
Another thing you need to talk about, you used to do that, kids in the classroom.
Yeah, we used to do ag in the classroom,
Or ag
which
in the
those were
classroom.
kids out of Kansas City that had no idea even that milk came from a farm. And so it was a great opportunity as well to educate, so.
Okay. Oh, I guess we wanted to talk about our sign up there a little bit. The farm divided. It probably has two meanings. One is because Tony has the jerseys and the rest is Holsteins. And that's just kind of a little feud between us. He likes to have the pride of the jerseys. And it could possibly be between the two generations too, but we're going to leave that one alone for now. So. Okay. All right. This is a timeline. My great-grandfather homesteaded it was in the late 1880s or 1800s. My grandfather built a house that I grew up in and my father grew up in, and he built that in 1917, and we still lived in that house until 10 years ago. And now our one son is thinking about remodeling it and moving back into that house. So in 1978, then I purchased the rest of the dairy, the cows and everything from my father. And consequently in 97, then we could kind of see that we needed to milk a few more cows. So we built the new parlor and freestall. We're milking 400 cows to start with. Realized that wasn't quite enough to pay all the bills, so we increased up to 600 cows, or 650. Yeah, distinguished family, kind of forgot about that already, but yeah, we got that in 2004. 2014, Tony came back to the dairy, and his thing was he wanted to be in the registered business, but he really didn't want to do what his dad had done, just because it was Dad. So I kind of guided him towards, maybe the jerseys would be a good fit for you. And because It didn't take as much money to get into that breed. Not saying that they're bad or anything like that. It was just that's the way financially it was. And he has built that up. I think he was one time number 5 in the country with his herd on JPI. So I really don't touch the Jerseys very much. I feed them every day, try to take care of them best I can, but he does all the mating and flushing. And he does have 2 bulls and stud right now. I think it's through ST Genetics, Palmer and Barley. So if you guys, anybody in Jersey, those are 2 of his bulls. And then in 2015, we decided that, well, and you'll hear this in the video, but labor was harder and harder for us to come by for a 3rd shift especially. And so we decided either we had to find more labor or we went with the robots. And so we decided to go the robot route. There was a little bit of, I think Mike Brook helped us with that. Correct me, Mike, but didn't we talk about that for like 5 or 6 years prior to get installation? I mean, it was quite a process. We had to find a dealership and get that all set up. I don't know if any Lely people are in there, but Steve Freed can probably tell you the story if you ever see him. I literally had to call him and ask and tell him who if they were going to be in the business, and they'd have to use a certain dealer. So anyhow, that's kind of what the timeline is. Okay, today. 650 Holsteins and Jerseys right now. This morning there were 636 milking, and 58 of those were Jerseys. Rolling herd average of 25,000. I believe we're a little bit higher than that, but I'm not going to give you exact numbers. Freestall barn, I mean, I guess that was one thing with the robots, and we can ask these questions later. This was a retrofit. These freestalls were there already, and so we just retrofitted and added the robots to them. So this was not a new facility coming in. We are 100% artificially inseminated. We do have the, I want to say it's a CRS system for heat detection with the robots and the rumination tag. We do use an OVSync program with the heat detection, and that has worked out well for us. And we're kind of learning to possibly go away from the OVSync as much as we can and use more of the regular heat detection, but we just have to accomplish what we need to. Total acres, there's 640. It's corn silage, alfalfa. We have been using some BMR sorghum silage. This year we went away from it. 2 reasons were we had oh, no, I can't say them. Sugarcane aphids came into our state last year and pretty much decimated. I mean, we probably lost 10 ton off our sorghum silage just because of what they did to the sorghum. So we went away from that this year and went strictly with corn silage. We're in the process right now of chopping our 2nd cutting of corn silage. I mean, we plant in April, and then we plant another go around in June just to kind of spread it out to see if we can get a better. Sometimes it's better early, sometimes it's better late. And then we do also use triticale in our ration too. And then the 12 Lely robots are there milking cows. So anything you want to add to that?
No, we had talked a little bit about the research that's done at the dairy.
Oh, yes. I call our dairy K-State North. I'm not so sure if I should, but we get a lot of K-State people coming up to the dairy, and we're very open to that because I want to learn as much knowledge as I can, and I think it does help them to some degree, but we've done, I don't know, Mike, help me out. Have we done 10 trials up there? Okay. we did have a very interesting, well, years ago, we kind of did, Joe did the cooling system trial, and that was very beneficial to us. So, but now the most recent one that we did was, there was a feed additive, correct me, Mike, from overseas, and we put it into the robot pellets, or as an extra feed, and we actually, I want to say what, they gained 5 pounds of milk maybe through the whole trial and stuff. So I'm very interested in, if that product would ever become available in the U.S., that would be very helpful to us. So yeah, we're working with the K-State vet lab now too, with taking different milk samples, cultures, trying to find any staph cows or anything like that. And it's just very helpful being that close to K-State, and we can utilize, their information too. So what else did I forget? Is that it? Okay. Robots.
Video.
You gotta go start it, or
I
somebody
think
does.
so. She's gonna do it.
Okay.
Yeah, this next portion is some videos that Laylee shot as a promotional, so.
Family farm started at this facility in '97, and then we added the robots in September of 2015. We have mainly a Holstein herd.
Currently, we're milking about 608 cows, and we have about 750 total cows, milking and dry cows. We farm about 500 tillable acres.
It's my family's dairy. I grew up here. That's why it's special to me.
We have 4 children involved in the operation, and we have 5 total children. We had been milking 3 times a day, and we lost some employees, and we couldn't find anybody to replace them.
It was all labor for us. It was getting to be too stressful around here, not knowing who was going to show up to work.
So we made the decision to go to 2 times a day. And with that decision, our production went down, and I knew that these cows had so much more potential, and we were not getting it out of them. The future for our dairy was kind of up in the air.
I would jokingly say we really kind of needed to get this thing going, but I honestly didn't think we'd ever wind up actually doing it.
2 months before we actually started installing the robots, I got cold feet. Dwayne and I were kind of, oh, do we do this or don't we do it? And I looked at him one morning, and I looked across at the dairy, and I said, there's no way that I could look at that dairy every day and see somebody else running it.
The idea of a machine doing the milking, I just couldn't believe that it was, something that could actually work.
We talked to different people. We felt the Laylee robot had the most experience on the market. We started the first 6 robots the 15th of September in 2015. The next 6 robots we started the 24th of September.
When it actually did happen, I just smiled from ear to ear, couldn't really believe it was going on. It definitely made things a lot easier and a lot less stressful, I will say that for sure.
Cows are a lot calmer, but I also find that with the employees too. There's a lot less stress. Anxiety.
Pretty much everything is a benefit. We've increased our production, we've increased our repro production. Everything about them has made the farm better, made our way of life a little bit easier.
What I've tried to do is set them up for success. I feel it's my job to set things in place so that we can be successful. And I feel robots are part of that success.
You want to comment?
I think the one thing that we didn't really touch on with all of this is the fact that when we built the barns in '97, we did not do it with the intention of our children coming back. We knew that we just had to expand. We'd had a fire, and some of our old parlor had been damaged a little bit. And so we were at that crossroads of we either have to build new or probably get out. And so we decided to go ahead and do the expansion. And all of a sudden, you know, we told our kids, you need to go to college, you need to get an education, you need to learn a trade, whatever. So they all went off, and they all did get trades, and all of a sudden they all started coming back. And it was like, no. And we sat down with all of them, and we said, if this is really what you want to do, we want you to come back, but we do not want you to come back just because you feel like you have to. And they all did. They all agreed that this is what they wanted to do. And so that's one thing I did want to explain, is that we did not do this for our children. We did this for our future. And our future now has included our children, so.
Well said. Yeah. Mike, you're in the back of the room. Do you want to say anything about nutrition? I put you on the spot.
Put you on the spot, Mike. He needs a microphone.
What comes into my mind is most of what's in that bunk is actually forage that we raise on our own farms, and paying real close attention to forage quality and how that impacts cow, not only milk production, but really cow flow. And that's probably, I think, the biggest challenge I think we've had and continue to have. So it's been a fun opportunity to work with the family, and again, if you have specific questions, I'll be around afterwards.
Thank you, Mike. I mean, I guess I would add to that, I understand, or if you people are from Minnesota and Wisconsin, and I have relatives that live up here in Minnesota, you guys don't quite understand what kind of weather we have in Kansas. I mean, it can get very difficult to raise good forages consistently year in and year out. That's something you guys may not see that up here as much as what we do down there. But that's kind of why they call us a wheat state too, so there you go. But no, we do, I mean, it has been a challenge. It's been a continual education for us. I mean, this year alone, we've tried about 3 different corn silage varieties just to see if we can get higher digestibility. The other day, they were talking about the mycogen BMR corn silage. I remember trying that probably 15 years ago. We haven't tried that since then because there is a problem with it of lodging, and that really shows up down in Kansas too. At least it was on our farm. So I guess, yeah, if there's other questions on the PTMR, I mean, right now, help me out, Mike, we're probably on the PTMR, it's probably about 44 pounds of dry matter per head per day, plus in whatever the pellets are that we have allotted in the robots. You have anything else?
I
Okay.
think the next is a video.
Is it what?
Is another video.
Okay.
When it comes to the nutrition program, there's lots of advice and suggestions that obviously go with that. It is a pretty big transition, more so for us trying to do the nutrition program and figure out where to balance the PTMR versus the pellets in the parlor than for the cows. They adapt pretty well. It's just we have to adapt to how they utilize those 2 different feed sources. There's a lot of data that comes at you, and trying to understand what's important to look at, what's not, how do you use that to actually manage your cows better. I see the computer at least about 7 o'clock every morning to see how the cows have done the last 24 hours or so. And really, I think you have to sit down and you have to look at the whole picture. You really have to investigate a lot of things before you really can say this is the issue, because sometimes it's something that needs to be changed on the farm, sometimes it's something that needs to be changed off the farm.
It's one less job we have to do. Instead of pushing feed up every hour and during the night, all we have to do is just watch the Junos push up the feed.
I would say it's going to stimulate your cows to come to the feed bunk more often, and by doing that, you're going to stimulate milk production. I would say those are the top two benefits of having the Juno run.
Having Junos and these robots has definitely made our jobs a lot easier. I mean, it's less things that we have to physically do.
I'm going to add a little bit to that with the Junos, though. You have to make sure the darn things are working all the time, too. So there's some maintenance to them, but we've kind of learned how to do that. Even I've learned how to do that on my cell phone. It was kind of funny the first year or so. You know, well, Dad, you're pretty old. You don't really need to do this. This is new technology. Well, you know, I turned that. I said, well, okay, that's fine. Every time they're broke down, I'm going to call you. It wasn't but a week or so, and all of a sudden I was learning how to do it. So, yeah. Anyhow, go into the heifer development, dear.
So when we built the new facility in '97, we were left with 3 freestall barns down at the old facility. At the time, we had decided that we were just going to go ahead and let someone else raise our baby calves and do that whole thing. It kind of became a financial thing, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, we couldn't quite swing it all to do it all
we couldn't.
once,
We
so.
didn't want to do it all at once, and we found out that we could raise the calves just as well as anyone else. So we decided that we would raise them to 300 pounds, and then they will go to a grower. And so we've had really good luck with that. And I think the next slide kind of shows you our barn situation. So we took our 2 old freestall barns. We added 2 automated calf feeders 7 years ago. I really like them. I know some people are like, oh, why would you want to do that? But I really, really like them. I think we get good growth out of our calves. And for the most part, they're pretty healthy. I mean, you know, in the winter, I have a lot of trouble with respiratory problems and things like that. But my problems really aren't scour problems. It's more of a respiratory thing. I'll just show the next slide. So we have it set up so that they can get outside as well. That last shot showed you that. We do have the tunnel ventilation. We added that a few years ago. Mike helped me with that, and that has made a big difference as well. We didn't have enough airflow in there, and this has helped a lot. And as you can see, they're running around and they're happy, and we do feed a grain to them. I have a very good vet that I work with, and she's fairly new to us, and she just gave me some tips this summer, and one of them was in my water, and I'm so glad she gave me this tip. And I guess I probably shouldn't say product names, so if anybody has any questions, you can ask me later. But there's a product that I put in my water, and it has made a huge difference in my calves. In Kansas, it gets very hot and it gets very humid. And this summer, I usually start calf chores about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was going down there and it was 100 degrees and it felt like 150 humidity. And I still had calves eating off of the feeder, which usually doesn't happen. So we have 2 automated calf feeders, and there's 2 stations on each side. And as you can see, it's an old facility, but it seems to work fairly well. My goal is I want a new heifer facility before I die. So I hope that happens. I raise them for 7 days on the bottle, and then I bring them into this facility. On the other side over here, we have them kind of separated. We did that this winter, past winter. We were having some real respiratory problems, and we decided to try to keep them separated a little bit more. And those are the young ones come in, and then we kind of gradually move them to the other side as they get older. I feed 165 concentrate level, which some people think is a little high, but I really like that level for what I'm trying to achieve. And it brings them up and then it brings them back down again and weans them. So I do it by myself. My son does come and help me do vaccinations and things like that, but I am able to feed all of the calves by myself, and it takes me a couple hours in the morning and a couple hours at night, so.
Except when you have a problem.
Except when I have a problem, yeah. Or something's out.
Yeah. I mean, I guess and maybe I shouldn't go into this, I mean, even with anything automated like this, I mean, I think most everybody knows this, you have to make sure you maintain the machinery to its utmost, otherwise it doesn't work. And one of the situations we ran into was we were given a soap, not given, but purchased a soap that was not designed for this calf feeder. Because this calf feeder has to use a low temperature soap. And if you don't have a low temperature soap, it doesn't do you a bit of good. So it probably took us, I don't know. I finally talked to somebody at Forster Technic and pinned him down about it. And, well, yeah, you're using the wrong soap. And that made all the difference in the world. But if you don't have everything clean, then you're going to have sick calves. Just real simple. So, but yeah, as far as the growth goes, I mean, you know, we've taken calves out of there at 6 weeks of age, 6 to 7, and doing 160 some pounds. So, I mean, it does grow them well. Yeah, we've been very happy with it. So, any other comments you have? Okay. Jersey genetics. Okay. I don't know a lot about these Jersey genetics. I do know they're very, some of the bulls that he's using right now, if it means anything to you guys, Disco, Maid, Harmony, and Blitz. Plus he's using some of Palmer, which is his own bull. He's flushed, I don't know, 6, 7 cows already. I've always found it interesting, though, that when he needs flush receps, it's always Dad's animals that he's using as the receps. But we'll have to negotiate that out yet. So, but the jerseys, as far as the robots go, jerseys are fantastic with robots. They go to robots very easily. In fact, he's had to dial them back a little bit because they want to just keep going through and going through. So. But we will give you, if anyone is interested in some of his genetics, we can give you contact information, and I'm sure he'd love to talk to somebody about it. So,
yeah, we tried to talk him into coming and talking about this, and if you know Tony, he's very shy, and it was like, no, there's no way. Oh.
Sometimes he's shy, yeah. Okay, back to the family again.
Yeah, this is actually our workforce minus our youngest daughter. We just hired 2 people this last week, but for the most part, we are the workforce of the dairy. I was telling Dwayne this morning, you know, when you work with somebody, it doesn't matter who it is or where you work, but you're working with a personality. You're not working, you know, they're people, but it's their personality that you have to work with. And so we have 7 very unique personalities that we work with. Our oldest son, and our 2 daughters are a lot like me, and we can go from 0 to 60 in 1.2 seconds as far as getting angry. And we will hold a grudge. The girls and I will hold a grudge for the rest of our lives. I mean, it doesn't matter, that we will remember that.
Nothing else, but they'll remember that.
Yeah. Right now, for fun, we decided in the March, we do the March Madness against each other. Right now, we're in fantasy football, and we all have our own fantasy football league. And we're all playing it against each other. And right now, I'm in number 1, and you better not mess with me. So, but They are. They all have such unique talents, and I think you're going to talk a little bit about that.
Well, I've always said this about our children. They are very unique. They all have their same or different personalities. If they could ever figure out how to put it all together and work together, they would be totally unstoppable. And I know that. She knows that. I think they're kind of starting to figure that out. But they're not going to tell Dad that he's right either, though. So I'm not sure what unique personality I have, but
We'll talk about that later.
yeah. Okay. Is there another slide?
I think that's it.
That's it. So I guess.
We hope you enjoyed our tour.
Yes, we do.
We hope we didn't bore you to death. But
Yeah. Leave that there.
We will now entertain any questions. If anybody has questions for Dwayne or Rhonda.
It dropped not very much, but it has come up since. We kind of know what the problem is. We have some staff cows out there, and we have to identify them and get rid of them or segregate them. I'll give a personal opinion. I don't think there's anything that's better for milking than actual human hands that are correct, that do it well. I mean, I will tell you that. Yeah. Yes.
you
Tell
gotta
me
wait
how
for-
many cows didn't make the transition from parlor cows to robot cows?
Actually, we did a lot of calling prior to the startup. I mean, we called cows that, we were told would not make it. I think we've actually only sold one or two animals that, they said, actually one of them I was being a little bit stubborn. The guys told me, they said there's no way she's going to make it. She's still in the herd. But yeah, if you have everything set up, keep your lasers clean. There's a lot of adjustments you need to do on them. You can milk an awful lot of cows. The worst ones are the back cross-teated cows. That's the worst ones.
How did you guys prepare financially for such a big jump? And secondly, is everybody kind of looked at as equal owners, or is it still mom and dad and then kids under that, or how is that all looked at?
How did we prepare ourselves? Not well enough, because I didn't predict how bad the milk was going to go down in 16. But I learned from that, and now we're actually using a consulting group to help with that. As far as how everybody is treated, none of them have actually bought into it yet, and Dad's being a little stubborn and says that that's what should happen. I think some of their ideas is, well, Dad, you ought to pay the debt down, then we'll take it over for you. But we haven't come to a good agreement on that yet, so that's kind of where we stand.
Can I add to that with the financial part of it? I think that's one thing I would really recommend to people. If you want to do something like this, I went with the approach that I need to pay down my debt so that I can, get our loans down so that we can, have better debt structure and all this kind of stuff. I wish I would have put that money into a savings account, because then we would have had some backup in these lean times. Also, there's nothing wrong with shopping for a bank. I wish we would have maybe, and I have nothing against our bank. I love our bank. But I think for some other people, maybe, you shop for everything else, you need to shop for a bank too. So.
Or at least have knowledge of it.
Or knowledge, yeah.
Prepare yourself as best you can.
Yeah.
And then you're still going to have that cushion there someplace. So. Yes.
On your feeding, is your TMR, your partial TMR, is that forages only, or do you have some grain and protein in there?
We do. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well,
Finish.
And then, did you see, because you're actually now kind of slug feeding grain, did you see the component levels change, butterfat or, you know, the rumen environment?
Yes. I mean, when we started out, we had some very dry corn silage. You know, the very first year, I want to say it was only about 40% moisture because we got caught in, well, it just got dry real quick and we couldn't get it put up. But we actually got up to some of the levels we were hoping to with that by changing some other things around. In the answer to the slug feeding, yes, you can feed too many pellets very quickly. And we've been through that and we've kind of backed that down now. There are on the KPIs, our goal is to be at about 14 pounds of pellets per 100 pounds of milk produced. And to answer, do we have some grain in the PTMR? Currently we have about 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds. But that could easily come out if our corn silage was high enough in starch. We may not need it in there either.
But all the protein's in the pellet.
Well, no, we feed haylage, dry alfalfa and haylage.
The soybean or the
Yeah,
concentrated protein.
that's all in the pellet, yes. And yes, you can change those values if you want to, how you make the pellet up to some degree, but it's very important to have a hard pellet too. Otherwise you get too much dust and fines and cows don't want to eat it there. Yes?
Dwayne, some of the complaints I hear about robots are having to get fetch cows all the time. Do you have any idea how to handle on that?
Yeah, you make sure you get rid of the failures first. And that sounds very simple, Steve, but that's truly what it is. When you have a cow that fails, you have to get her back through and make sure she gets milked and has a successful milking. Because what's going to happen if you don't, that cow's going to keep going through that robot and keep failing. It not only messes her up, but it messes up about 10 or 12 other cows because the cows are very habitual as to how they go to the robot. And so what we do is in the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks, the heifers have done quite well. I'm not sure why, Mike, maybe you can give me some insight as to why you think the 2-year-olds are going in so well versus the cows, but the 2-year-olds we hardly fetch. I mean, they've got 108 in that group right now. If he has more than 4 fetch cows, it's a bad day. It truly is. Now we get into the mature cows where the failures are, and they've got that down to, I mean, if we normally, if we have more than 12 or 15 in a group of 150 to 160, it's a bad day. But it truly is, you have to understand what the failures are and how bad they're going to affect things. And if you get them taken care of so that the cows can actually voluntarily go through, it picks it up real quick. Yeah.
The reason I ask is some people were talking about different ways of installing robots. In other words, to alleviate the fetch cow problem, you go back to traditionally bringing those cows into a holding pen and then having those cows milked in a traditional kind of a operation, one barn operation instead of a robot here, robot up there. Plus, you have less expense in feeding the cows individually from a pelleting standpoint. You can just have a total PMR. Do you have any kind of a handle there?
No, because I haven't been in that system, and so I really don't want to say on that system. I know with our system, the way we're set up, we've got a cow, and it happens to be in that 2-year-old pen. We've got a robot set up. I swore when they put that in, there was no way the heifers were ever going to go in there, because they walk up, like if my wife is where the gate is, they walk up and have to turn to go back into that robot. And that's still one of the most heavily used robots. I mean, that pen just doesn't bother them. It really doesn't. And why that is, I can't really explain that. I mean, it's just, I know what our system is, I know what works there, and we just have to continue doing that. But to give advice on other systems, I wouldn't even want to try that. So I guess that was one thing I was supposed to add when we had startup. My wife has a pedometer on her phone. Well, the first startup, we did 2 weeks, and we started on the 15th, then 2 weeks later we did the second 6 robots. So being brave as I was, I told the boys, I said, you get 2 boys, go take care of the north barn, and Mom and I will fetch 12 hours straight in the south barn. And then we had people that would come at night then too. Anyhow, I thought I was, getting a little gant there for a day or two and couldn't figure out why. Well, she says, you know what? She says, she had her phone on. She said, we were walking 10 miles a day on that concrete. No wonder I was getting a little gant, huh? But I put it back now, so I'm good. Did I answer your question, Steve? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's, I think so.
Okay.
So you're satisfied with this system that you have?
It is what it is. This is what I'm going to deal with, and that's what I focus on. Yeah. Yes.
What on your present system with the number of cows you have, what do you predict is going to be the number of years in order for you to pay back the investment?
Give me another $1 and milk, and I'm hoping we can get it done in 10 years. If that $1 doesn't come, it's probably going to be 15. I mean, but we're talking, I have to consider what we went through the last year and a half where the low prices were, and we actually went backwards too. If I started out at square one and had the management plus marketing that I'm doing now, it could have been much easier, but I didn't have that in place that first year. But I mean, a lot of the guys that I talked to, they talked 7 to 10 years is what they were talking about.
Right now it is 10 years, so we're hopeful, Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What's your maintenance? What's your
Maintenance
cost per unit
cost.
per month?
You need to answer that one.
Oh,
I'm guessing it's going to be around 10,000, 10 to 12, but.
I would say when you first start, for whatever reason, it seemed to be a little bit higher than what it is now. I think when we first started, it was running around 12 to 13,000 a month. But I think a lot of that was we were still in that initial. To back up a little bit, we're kind of the guinea pigs. We were the first ones in Kansas. Our dealer had never done robots before. Nobody knew what we were doing. And so I think maybe there was a little overkill on some things and maybe not on other things. So right now I would say we're back down to about that 8 to 10,000 a month on maintenance, and that's your soaps and your supply, your liners and things like that. And everything kind of gets lumped together, but.
We've learned to do a lot of the maintenance and repairs ourselves too.
Yeah.
And that helps out a lot. Because
Our
otherwise
dealer-
you have to call the dealer and have him come out and have a trip charge. And
Our dealer is
Yeah.
actually 2 hours away from us, so we've
Hour
had
and a
to
half.
really learn quickly how to do some of those things. So.
But that doesn't mean he doesn't get a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning either.
And he comes.
Or we talk it through on the phone to see what we have, what we have to fix. Yes, sir.
Since you were in a retrofit, what would you do differently if you could have been a brand new build?
I don't know. One thing I wouldn't do in our situation where we're at climate-wise, our robot buildings are on the outsides of the freestall barns. I would have them in the middle because freezing up in the wintertime has been a major issue for us. that would be probably one of the first things. But after that, I'm not really sure. I haven't had time to be able to give it that much thought.
I think we would probably add the vector system if we could.
And that's still on the list.
Yeah,
but,
it
yeah.
is still on the list, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that would be a great benefit to it. You know.
Because I have seen in feeding, if you feed, and I do that, I'll feed 5 loads through the day to the cows, and we seem to get better production when we do that, just especially in the heat of summer.
What's a vector system? Oh.
It's an automated.
I'm sorry.
Well, you saw those Junos that were pushing the feed up. They actually have a system now where it mixes feed up in a kitchen, and then it comes out and it feeds it with those same type of deals. The only issue with them is that you have to have, how do I say this? Those Junos are very good when it's inside and it's dry and it's on concrete. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to get those Junos or the vector from the kitchen, quote, so to speak, to the actual barns. And that can be challenging. I mean, they're out there and they're doing it. Some of them are doing, putting a roof over the whole thing. I think the one yesterday was doing that, correct?
Theirs was a new
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
By migrating to the robot system, how was your milk production average affected, negatively or positively?
During the first 2 weeks of startup, it was a negative. But it probably within 2 to 3 weeks, it was positive after that.
1%, 5%, 10%?
Oh, I'd say the first 3 days were probably a 4 to 5% drop, maybe 10%. And then after that, it started slowly increasing. I mean, we did it. One thing you have to remember with us, where some other people have, how do I say this? When we did ours, we shut the parlor down completely after that second startup. There was no cow that went through that parlor and never has since. That was the decision we made. There's a lot of people that when they have startups, if a cow doesn't work in the robots, they take them back to the parlor and milk them. And that's fine. It was just our decision that cows were going to use the robots or they weren't going to be milked on this dairy. Whether that was a bad decision or not, I don't know, but yeah.
Just to follow up on that, but you were 3X, went to 2X.
No, we were,
Well,
yeah.
right.
Probably three years prior to this, we were at 3X. Yeah.
So your production level if everything else, your feed and everything was the same, your production level from 3X to 2, and then now you're at 2.7 or whatever it is.
Yeah, we're probably averaging right now at 2.9, three milkings a day.
You say your production has come back to your 3X?
We've increased over the 3X that we were in the parlor, yes. 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 Yes, sir.
You mentioned your kids went off to college for training. Has that been in the dairy science area or any particular specialties that they're bringing?
One of them was an art major.
Yeah, she's a graphic designer.
One of them was a carpenter, and one of them was a mechanic. I don't remember. Dusty didn't go to school.
He did not go to school.
No.
He looked at going to Utah State, and he decided that he didn't know what he wanted to do for sure. And so he actually worked at another dairy close to us, and he worked on a hog farm. And he came back, and when we're going to do the robots, he got real excited about the robots, and he wanted to come back. So.
Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about your freezing challenges?
With what?
Freezing challenges.
Freezing challenges. Click back to where it shows a robot arm. What happens is, we've got circulating hot water in the actual robot rooms, but the problem is when that arm reaches out to go under the cow to milk them, those chains and ropes will freeze up. And what we came up with is,
It's in the video.
oh, but anyhow, that arm goes outside of your room because the cow is outside of the room. And that's where your freezing will occur at. And so we've come up with two solutions. One of them is to put an actual plywood board, on the other side of where the cow stands. And then we've got some fans that are directing hot air directly down onto that robot arm. And last winter, that seemed to help considerably. We've got heaters in each one of these rooms. They're like 10,000 BTU heaters. So it can be 60 degrees actually in the room, but where that arm sticks out, when it's below zero, it's pretty hard to keep those chains and ropes from, if they get a little bit of ice on them, then they don't want to work the way they're supposed to.
But the rest of it works fine.
Yeah, if you got enough heat in there, yeah. Yes, sir.
Anything especially have to do with fresh cows, especially heifers?
Patience. And Dusty is very patient with them. We've had to, if you have one that gets pretty wild on you, sometimes you just let them go, run them back through an hour or so later, have 2 or 3 people there, one staying at the head, one on the side. They actually will calm down. That's one thing with a robot arm. It's not like you and I, when we get kicked a couple of times, we kind of like to retaliate. Well, the robot arm doesn't do that. And so they figure out pretty quick that, hey, they're beat, and they let themselves be milked. I think the longest one we've had to wait is probably almost 30 hours before she finally let herself be milked. We have they call it a MUSI. It's actually a bucket, so we can program into the robot. It'll divert it into a bucket instead of the drain, and then we collect that, test it, and then pasteurize it after that. Yes, sir.
How are your cows improved? What is their, once they calve, what happens?
When a cow goes into a pen, she stays there the whole lactation. You don't move them in or out. We try to keep 2-year-olds separate. Jerseys have to be separate because it's a different stall for them. But the rest of them, wherever there's a pen available, that's where they go to, and they stay there.
Do you have 6 pens of 2 robots, or do you have 1?
We have 4 pens of 3 robots. Yeah. And we did have a, quote, fresh pen, sick pen with a straw pack, and we didn't use it correctly because we had too many cows in there at one time. So now we found out the quicker we kick them out in general population, they get along better. And you can always pull them back and sort them if you want to. I mean, that was the idea I had with the individual robots, was that we could still give individual cow attention.